email from Makita Sensei. It looks like our seminar is on, or he seemed to be. Yeah, I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I heard that classes are running at Boulder now.
Yes, they stopped them in February.
Right.
But I guess they didn't have parking lot training like we have, so. And the weather there doesn't lend itself to that either. Because Makita Sensei said he'd been shoveling snow, so. That's over my pay grade to train in the snow. I know it's a true warrior, but yeah. Not so much. Okay, the meeting is being live streamed and it is 6 p.m. So let us go ahead and we'll start our session. Just taking a moment to align ourselves. And let's bow in. Onegaishimasu. Let's start with some heaven and earth breathing. Dipping down from the earth and reaching up toward the sky and radiating out into the world. And working with our containment breath. And let's begin to turn from center. As we turn, just enjoying the sense of ki flowing out through our arms and fingertips. Inviting some ki up from the earth and down from the sky. Then extending out. Okay, and let's just stand in that for a moment and sense the ki flowing around us and through us. And let's stretch our sides. And our low backs. Okay, and let's do some circles with our hips. In both ways. And our knees. Both ways. Stretching the backs. And if you're comfortable, squatting for the front. Okay. Aikido. And settling down, lengthening up strong hips and opening our hearts. Other side. Ganesh. And Nikyo. And inside of the arms. Nice. Big circles. Shoulders. And then let's work our core a little bit using our elbows. Okay, big triangle. Extending way out, opening our backs, inviting Aiki spirit to flow through us. And together, back. And I know this is a simple move, but as we do it, as we're going to be talking about Musubi or unity, connection, let's be sure that it's our legs that are moving our arms. So as the leg steps up, the arm comes forward. As the leg goes back, it pulls the arm down. So it's really our legs that are generating the energy. And our arms follow that. And then the idea of ki flowing all the way out through our fingertips, finding a point to extend to, and imagining our backs are open. Nice. And now let's hold for a moment and just stand in it. See if you can still sense the triangle and the ki flowing through you, around you. Okay, let's do a few 2 steps. And as we turn, inviting some ki up from the earth, inviting ki from the sky, fingertips, imagine lights filled with ki, and then the space around us. The space is moving us. Think of it like a warm breeze connecting us to a bigger, more universal energy. Two more. And now let's turn and stay for a moment and just stand in it. See if you can sense the ki flowing through us and around us. And let's do a little bit of rowing. And let's charge our sword blade up. So that we can really feel from the elbow all the way to the fingertips, that sense of ki flowing out through the sword blade. And then we'll gather it back and extending out And find an imaginary point you're extending to, something out there, because that gives you ability to focus your ki, like a laser. And then gathering it back. Drawing ki up from the earth, down from the sky, from our backs, finding that point to extend to, and gathering it back. The whole sword blade is alive, extending, gathering. Couple more. Okay, let's reach up. Take some ki from the heavens, bring it down, vibrating our hara. And as we concentrate into our hara, imagine it as a point becoming smaller and smaller until it opens out into the universe and we're vibrating with the universe in our hara. And stop for a moment, see if you can still sense the vibration, sense the universe inside you. Okay, other side. And extending your sword blade out, gathering back. The whole sword blade is charged. And it extends to a point. And then gathering back. Inviting ki from behind us, from above us, from below us. Good concentration, focus. Two more. Okay. Once again, let's reach up, take some ki from the heavens, bring it down, vibrating our hara. Thinking of a point inside of our hara, becoming smaller and smaller until it opens out into the universe. And the universe is vibrating inside of us. And stop, and then see if you can sense the vibration continuing, the sense of the universe inside you. Okay. So, hi. Musubi, connection. I think it officially means things like to tie, to bind, to connect. And, when I first heard about it, the implication was always connecting to my partner in Aikido. As I started thinking about it, and then I started looking at this, I have some sort of great things that I discovered on the interweb, that it's more than just connecting to our partner. And so I'd like to do 3 layers. First layer would be connecting to ourselves. So the idea of unifying our head, heart, and our hara. And just that sense of starting with that, there's a sense of I'm aligned, as opposed to, forward or back or off. So as we do that, we just connect with alignment. And then taking that alignment and connecting a little bit more with the heaven and earth feeling too, that double helix. So letting that level of connection happen. And then I think there's this sort of connection, talking about unity. So unity is unifying the body, but also there's unifying with the greater universal energy. And then there's unifying with the partner. So those are the 3 kind of layers of it that I think it's worth exploring and unpacking a little bit with that. So The term connection in Aikido is often used interchangeably with unity. Both of them relate to the Japanese words Aiki and Musubi. They describe the quality of being in one's body, an interaction between partners that allows them to move together as one. And then there's something that Satomi had said, that quote from him. Satomi Sensei talks about organizing our own body, I love this, and designing space around us in a way that allows Aiki or unity. Organizing our own body and designing space around us in a way that allows Aiki or unity, which I think is a really amazing concept, like those using those words. He teaches us to sense unity rather than just performing techniques in our partners without feeling their response and connecting to it. So what I'd like, and then Ikeda Sensei, she interviewed Ikeda Sensei about this. This is Anna Small. She's up in Maine. Gary and Anna Small, they were originally from Musubi Dojo in DC, and then they moved to Maine. But I want to start with this thing that Ikeda Sensei said, and we can use our bokens, but he says, Musubi is a mind-body connection with one's partner. It is like having a sword and connecting its tip to the person we are working with. That connection allows us not to have to move our arm power to swing the sword, just using our body movement. If you understand connecting with the sword, you don't need to swing the sword, you just move your body and the sword moves with you. That is unity, connection, and Musubi. So to play with that, what I'd like to do is have us work with our boken. So if you want to grab a boken. Okay, so let's take our bokens out. And years ago, when I was studying with Ikeda Sensei, he was teaching a basic strike. One of the things he taught us was to shuffle back and raise it and shuffle forward and cut. So it was that shuffling back. And I think that's the idea that when I move back, that brings this up, and when I move forward, it brings it down. So rather than doing this as a separate movement with our arms, what we want to do just for a basic Showman Strike is this foot steps back, and as this foot pulls in, it pulls the sword up. And then going forward, as that back foot brings the sword down. So the front foot pulls the sword up, and the back foot brings the sword down. So play with that for a minute and just see what it's like to have your legs control the movement of your arms and therefore your tip of the sword. It's like the tip of the sword is connected to your feet. Okay, and then stop for a minute. And now do it differently, just to contrast. So concentrate on your upper body and just have a sense of raising the sword with your arms and then cutting with your arms. And you can move your feet a little if you like, but concentrate more on using your arms to do the cut. What's it like to focus mainly on the arms? Still doing a very nice cut, but you're using your arms. Couple more. Thinking about raising your arms and lowering your arms. Okay, now stop for a minute. And see if you can have a sense of aligning yourself, head, heart, and hara. And then align yourself between heaven and earth. Take a minute and it's bigger. And then see if you can have a sense of the bottoms of your feet. And as your foot moves, it pulls the sword up, and the foot brings the sword down. So see if you can feel the difference of what it's like to let your feet And what's below your feet, maybe down into the earth, move the sword. Notice if it feels any different or if there's a different sensation of what you're connected to. Do a couple more. Okay, let's stop for a minute. And then let's hold the bokken because we're going to do some more bokken. And let's just check in. So I'm curious if you notice a difference and the implication of that. Was a difference between using your arms or using your feet to move your bokken?
I found that the stepping back was easier because it's raising and stepping back at the same time. Stepping forward, I step forward with my right leg and then pull my back leg up. So there's a two-step.
Yes, so the stepping forward is kind of getting ready, and then that back foot for me makes the actual cut. So this is kind of a getting ready, and then, because when I pull that back foot up, then I'm stable. So here, when I'm sliding forward, I'm still not completely stable. You can see I'm sliding, and then when I pull that back foot behind me, that's the sort of signal that I can send the energy out because there's a balance.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts on the difference? Yeah, David.
Just, it's hugely different for my body, and I don't like using my arms anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, for so long, my attention has been on this moves because the rest of me moves,
yeah,
not because of my arms. That's the kind of weapons work I want to be doing. That's the kind that feels good to me, and that's what I want to be training my system to do, is that this moves because everything's moving, not because I'm doing something with my arm.
And I dare say when we're first learning a new kata or a new move, for me, there's all this kind of emphasis, or if I'm teaching, like if I'm teaching the 4 direction, because we do it with all kinds of people who don't do Aikido. And I say you have to raise your left elbow and then pull it over the top of your head. And then pivot underneath it, and then you're going to cut. So I have to really emphasize the movement of the arm to teach it. Like raise this elbow up, the bokken will be upside down, pull it over your head, pivot underneath, and then cut. So then the next iteration after that is now to start to let the body move rather than the arm move. But I think, the tricky part is it has to start with the arm, and we have to be careful we don't continue with the arm. Because otherwise we're not kind of unified or connected to ourselves. We're doing pieces, which beginners have to do pieces, I think.
I also had an awareness of how, and I hadn't quite recognized this before, how that shuffle back closes my hips kind of automatically. And then the slide forward and the back foot coming forward brings the back hip into, that here, this opens it up my hips, and that, but I can really feel that.
Nice.
Here, and then there, settling in.
Yes, because if I'm not using a lot of arm power, my experience is my timing will be better. And when I'm using arm power, my timing can be off by like a half a second or a quarter of a second. And when I'm not using arm power, it's kind of, so this feels like it takes longer than that. Whereas this feels like it takes long, somehow there's like a slight part of a second delay when I'm using my arm. So as in the kind of weapons we do, that it's fast and light, so the timing is key. Any other thoughts on unifying with ourselves? So let's do one that I like to do at the end, and as you know, I try to emphasize it, which is this idea of the foot goes back and pulls the bokken down and then it pops up, right? So the sense of it's the foot that pulls the tip of the bokken, boom, which is different than doing this move, 1, 2. So I can do the move, I can go 1, 2, 1, 2, or I can do the move, which I try to coach you as the foot comes back, the foot pulls the tip of the bokken down, and then it just kind of pops itself up. So take a minute and play with that. And contrast, because the body learns the best when you contrast. So contrast the difference between 1, 2, step, cut, and then change up and go as you step back, that pulls the tip down. The step itself, the foot is what pulls that, and then it just pops up on its own. So play with that a little bit on your own and then just get the feeling of being unified with yourself that way. Notice your breath when you're doing it with your foot, and then if you do it separately, foot and then, notice if your breath or your muscles feel different. If you're doing it in 2 pieces, a step and then a cut. And then change up some and try to do it as 1. Okay, stop for a minute. And now we're going to take it just 1 step further. See if you can do it from below your feet. So just imagine below your feet, there's a whole nother sort of pulse or rhythm going on. And that's actually what's informing the movement. So go down below your feet, connect with that for a moment. And then imagine that something below your feet pulls your foot. And what's it like to have something even below the floor move you? Notice your breath, the feeling in your body. Do a few more. Two more. And stop for a moment. So I'm curious if it was, well, probably was difference between using your arms and then using your feet, and then was there any difference if you connected to something below your feet? I mean, that's a little bit outside our normal rational mind, but still.
I almost felt like I was losing control over the bokken when I was thinking about connecting it to something underneath my feet. It was like my butt, it's like big movement. So I had to adjust how I was holding on to the bokken.
Yes, I mean, I would encourage that would, over time, you get more comfortable. It's sort of like anytime we're going to the next level of using more energy, we're inviting more power, we're going to be wobbly and uncomfortable for a while. I mean, it's part of the adjustment period, because, you know, if I can keep it in control, then, you know, I can manage it. But if I can push that edge a little bit so something bigger is moving me, I think that's the direction that we really want to go in, so that we're not as limited. Can we connect to something bigger? I mean, it's one thing to align to ourselves, that's great. Can we align to a bigger intelligence?
I had an experience similar to Elizabeth's. I find myself very inspired by the stories of O-sensei training in the woods and learning from the tree spirits.
Hmm.
And so I was just imagining, well, what if I'm a tree? You know, like my feet, the roots are going way down. And yeah, my upper body movement started to be so free, like the branches in the wind today. And the trunk so strong.
Yes, and you know, holding the bokken is an interesting thing. Sometimes Sensei used to go around every now and then and just go bam and hit our bokkens really hard. And half the people, the bokken would fly out of their hands. And he would say, you're holding too tight. And then of course you're too loose, but that's rare. Usually people hold the bokken too tight. There's too much gripping, trying to control the power. So there's a way that we can be relaxed and take that impact. And it can come back, but when we're holding tight, then often the bokken, if somebody really hits it hard, will fly out of our hands. I mean, it's kind of a paradox because we're trying to keep the bokken from flying out of our hands by gripping tightly.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I saw him do that enough times that I was quite aware that gripping tightly was not the answer to holding on to the bokken. Just like gripping somebody's wrists really tightly doesn't mean you can hold on to them. A little more relaxed and being able to move with their movement, you can often stay with them a lot better.
There's a Musubi piece for me here. As we're working with the under the feet,
Yeah.
I could feel coming forth in my body this sense I've been trying to work with over the last number of years when I'm doing partner practice, that I'm responding to my partner's strike when I'm the one winning, for lack of a better word, when I'm nage. I don't remember what the words are we use in weapons practice, but anyway, that there's a way that I want to be present such that when your sword starts to move, I start to move. My tip is tied to your tip or something along those lines. So that quality of Musubi are tied together. And I was feeling that with the under the feet, that my movement was tied to what was going on beneath me rather than kind of like initiated within my physical body.
Yes. And that's very nicely said, David. And I also think that, you know, when we're doing partner practice, especially with weapons, there's such a tendency to focus on the person's stick, the jo or the bokken. And I would really encourage people, when I teach you, to have soft eyes and focus on the space and have a sense that you and your partner are connected. Because the jo or the bokken is a little more of a challenge for the body. And so the tendency is to try to focus on that. And, you know, the practice of having a big bubble and including them in it, it's that same. Then I feel like if the timing is better between the two people, we can move more easily for sure.
That helps me make a little more sense out of the quote that you had from Satome about designing the space.
Yes.
I'm thinking of O-sensei saying, you know, find the circle. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So my experience is when I focus on the space, that's what connects us. And so from an Aikido point of view, we design the space usually in a circle, square, or triangle. I mostly use the circle in a triangle, because the square is mostly about being immovable, which is not as interesting to me as the triangle and the circle. So organizing the space in a triangle or a circle. So to include my partner, and then in the end, when we do the boom, you know, to sort of, we complete and we end up managing their center, and their boken is knocked to the side. And that end move where we do that, it should be anyway, a spiral, not a boom too. So that has to me a big circle with a triangle inside it.
Nice.
Like the circle is the two of us are connected. We're organizing that space, and then this is that triangle that pierces, that goes through the partner. So if I can have that sort of idea or that image, then I can work to try to manifest it in the actual partner interaction. Otherwise, people mistake and they think it's like a knock their boken to the side and then extend, which is not my experience of how we finish those katas. But playing all the time with a circle and a triangle. So the arimi is the triangle, the entering in, and the circle is more the tenkan, or the sense of being with. So we can connect or tie ourselves to that person using either shape, either that shape or more of a round shape. So this is an interesting thing. Keeping in touch implies a physical connection. The meaning is that the true connection between individuals is maintained from the heart. The primary connection between uke and nage is not a physical one. It's an emotional and spiritual one. The physical connection is just an extension cord through which the energy flows. Nice, huh?
Who is that quoted?
It's Anna Small, and she's saying that was what she learned from Satomi Sensei.
Okay, thank you.
She said he liked this phrase, keeping in touch. It implies a physical connection. The meaning is that the true connection between individuals is maintained from the heart. And that's, you know, always something to, like, it's a tricky one for me because I want to connect to the universe, and we're connected by the universe, and I want to connect to the heart. And so sort of the exploration is, how do I do both? How do I connect heart to heart and still keep that larger universal energy? So I think, you know, there's one way is to toggle back and forth between connecting to the person's heart and then opening, or another way would just be to establish a big open field and then have a sense that there's a thread inside that, a heart connection inside that. So those would be two ways we could connect to the universe and connect to the other person's heart.
One way that comes up for me around that, Sensei, is the universe is love or as heart. And
Yes.
then our hearts are a part of that.
Nice.
Right? They're not different. It's just another expression of the universal love.
I like that.
Within the big love.
I mean, for me, the problem with person-to-person connection, and it was used here at one point from someone else. For example, the word connection implies two separate entities meeting and forming unity. And, you know, you've heard me say that blending is overrated. Because if we're blending, we're implying that we're separate and we have to get together. And I personally like to take the attitude that we're already connected, so we could act as if that's true. And then my interaction with my technique is really different. So I think training weapons to have the feeling that if I'm doing this movement, I'm drawing my partner into the movement with me, rather than, you know, smacking them away from me. The weapons that we do really keep more of a bond or a connection. Then when I learned the Awama, it was more like smacking the weapon, which is good practice because it makes you strong and it's got good timing. I'm not saying And at the same time, it doesn't imply that we can keep the thread all the way through the two of us. It sort of implies I'm trying to dominate the other person's boken. So it's a different kind of a feel. Anyone else's thoughts on connection and what it means? Any of the 3 layers of connecting to ourselves, connecting to the universe, or connecting to other?
Well, I think in the work I do, and I think that that's true for probably everybody, teachers, but especially in end of life care, it's I always have to sit back in the larger space to see what unfolds, and there is already the connection then is already there. I mean, that's the clearest way I see that. It's like when I'm able to sit back and allow more space, then I don't need to establish the connection with who I'm working with, because that connection then is already there.
Yes, I think that's a really good point, Elizabeth. And I think it's very supportive of someone at the end of life situation to sense that somebody is relaxed with that, rather than somebody is trying to establish something, because that kind of creates, I know when I feel like somebody's trying to establish a connection or trying to make something happen, it always makes me feel a little bit like I should do something too. Like they're doing something, I should do something. I feel when the person's relaxed, I feel like, oh, I can relax. I don't have to self-generate some kind of explanation about how we're okay or good or together or wherever they're going is a good place. There can be that sense of more sense of relaxation. Because of the mirror neurons, when I'm relaxed, then the other person can relax as well. And when one person gets jacked up, then the other person tends to be reactive to that as well. So that connection from the point of view of mirror neurons is like, well, what would I like to see unfold here is the moving together. So if I'm relaxed, it's easier to sense how we can move together.
I was really struck by the Satome Sensei quote about designing the space.
Yeah, me too.
And it really spoke to me about this experience I've had with him, with you, with other high-ranking teachers from time to time, where I know you're already connected with me. It's like, I'm getting ready to attack here, but it's already over. And in some cases that it feels like there's no straight line that leads towards Sensei's body. The only way I can get in is around. Like the space is designed in such a way that there's a spiral happening or something energetic happening there that I have to work my way into. That feels like I'm already part of what's going on with you, with Satome Sensei, with Ikeda Sensei, before I even start.
Yes. And I think that's because we really, as much as we can, we concentrate on the sort of sense, the bigger sense. And we have to get that any way we can. I mean, for me, I've been working with Adam. He's practicing for his black belt test. He's joined our dojo. And because that sense of big space was not familiar to him, like he was very focused on the detail, and he's tall. So I asked him to imagine that he had like a portal in the back that was like an Iron Man thing in the front. So Iron Man, the Marvel thing, he has a thing in the front, right? That's his heart thing that's saving him from shrapnel or whatever. And it's a glowy round thing about that big. And I said, imagine you have it in the back of your heart. And then because it was a specific, he could concentrate on that, and then he could shift his energy to something bigger. Like he couldn't yet put his energy on the whole room or the bigger, because it was such a big leap from manage the other person's arm to the whole room. What he could do is he could imagine there's a little portal in the back of his heart. Let's say the portal was about, I said it's about this big. And just imagine that that portal is bringing light and energy and support through you. And so that gave him a connection to something bigger. But it was workable for him because it wasn't like big space. So I think sometimes we try to connect to something that's too big yet. We're not there yet. We can't do the universe yet. So we have to find steps in between. Does that make sense? So what would the steps be that allow us to connect to the next level, whether it's a little bit below our feet, or a portal on our back, or lights coming through our fingers? All of those are steps along the way. They'll help us grow the sense of something. We have something much more than just our bodies that we have access to.
I'm appreciating the reminder also that little bit of disorientation is also part of the process of going to the next level.
Sure.
That's a place where I can think, oh, what have I screwed up? I'm feeling a little off center, rather than, remembering, oh no, this is part of that, expanding within myself. So thank you for that reminder.
I remember years ago, it was when we were at TAM, at Mill Valley Dojo, and we had some people training for black belt, and they were kind of all falling apart. You know how we used to have like a sort of a 6-month hazing period where I'd bring them out and, put pressure on them, and everything would kind of fall apart and they get to rebuild. And I remember this one woman was so great because she was about 3 months in, and her technique, she was good, but her technique was kind of falling apart and she was struggling. And then little by little, it was coming together. And she had this great comment. She came up after class, she goes, I can feel myself growing. It was so beautiful. I mean, she was struggling. She was in the struggle, but she recognized that it was taking her to the next place. So she wasn't taking the attitude, oh, I'm a mess and I can't do it anymore, and I was better when I was a third Q. She was taking she had this kind of insight. It's like, oh, it's reorganizing. My system is growing, and it's a little wobbly, and she could sense she was going to the next level of it. So it was so beautiful to have her actually say that she could recognize that, because we have such a tendency for the self-critic, which I think is a pity, because it really often keeps us from appreciating the value of the struggle.
Mm. I was also thinking when you were talking about, relaxing in the space, I think it was Robert Hall who said, it was either him or another psychiatrist who said, if you create the right circumstances, the psyche will move towards healing on its own. So if you create the space, if you allow the space, the healing will its natural way of healing that happens, which I always thought was beautiful.
It is really beautiful. I mean, I think we're programmed for success. If we weren't, we would really be in trouble. You think of all the ways we could screw up. There's a lot. So I think the universe has programmed us for success, and then there has to be the struggle along the way. But as you're pointing to, Elizabeth, if we sort of allow the system to self-organize, it will. And I think with the intention to grow, to heal, to whatever that is, rather than this intention that I'm afraid and I have to protect myself. I think that's what we really is not. It's not what we're designed to do. I think just to survive. I think we're designed for more than survival. For the next level. And so these discussions and these ways of thinking, I think, can help us to see if we can stretch ourselves to bigger connections, which in the end will help us connect to people more skillfully as well. And I think it's limited to think I'm just going to connect to you and then we'll be good. I think it's helpful if there's something bigger to connect to, and then we're in it together in a natural, organic way, rather than trying to manufacture a connection. Hard to do on the mat, though.
I'm just thinking about what you're saying relative to randori. How if I try and connect with each individual uke, randori is exhausting. I need to connect to the space.
Yeah.
And flow from uke to uke.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good thought too. Randori is a good one. Huh. So let's just do a little more bokens. And we have our bokens. We'll just do a little more boken work. And let's just do a little bit of this kind of a 4-direction-y. So a showman and then pulling it up over our heads and then pivoting and cutting. And pivoting and cutting. And as you do that, let's contrast again. So we make the cut and then we turn the boken upside down. Notice this move, which is a kind of a classic, move. Where do you generate from? So you made a showman strike, and then you're going to do that move, and then you're going to pivot, and then you're going to cut, and then you're going to do this move, and pivot and cut. We'll just do the 2 pivots, because I don't know how much room everybody has. But as you do that, you make the first cut. We've already established that first cut comes from the back foot. And then the question is, where does this come from? And how can you make this seamless? Boom. So there's a number of little steps that you want to explore when you're doing this. So if you just sort of think of it as 1, 2, 3, 4, that's how you would teach it. Like I would teach it, strike, elbow up, pull it over the top of your head, pivot underneath and cut. Then what are we going to do to make it more connected to itself? So play with it a little bit and see if you can start with it as if you're teaching it to a beginner, just so you get that feeling of the separate pieces. And then the right elbow is up and I pull it over the top of my head and I pivot underneath and I cut. So if you do that a couple of times, then after you've done that, then start to play with it to make it more connected. How does the whole sequence connect? And how can you, given what we've been discussing, establish a better connection? Do a few more. Last one. And then stop for a moment and just stand there and see if you can sense the flow. And then when you're ready, let's just put our bokens to the side and check in, because we still have boken to use for the declaration. So is there anything that you were able to use from your existing process or maybe from tonight's class that helped you find more connection?
I think I was able to keep track of the tip of my bokken, like turning around. I never keep track, but even in the turning around, to kind of keep track of the tip of the bokken connecting to the larger space.
Nice.
I never
Very
thought.
nice. I like that. So, yeah, the tip, following the tip of the bookend, that's nice. Connecting bigger space.
I found myself tying the first practice, the Ikeda sensei shuffle back, shuffle forward, and just finding places where that fit into the structure of what you had us working with. How could I feel, working first with the 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of staccato version, and then coming into more flow and feeling where the weight shift happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a similar thing, that the feeling here, it was like the earth underneath my foot was kind of pulling that back foot, and that was pulling this up. And then when I pivoted, there was that sort of, again, there was underneath my foot that was helping that strike, and then the weight comes back and that was pulling that up and then pivoting. So there was a little bit of that, something deeper was initiating the movement.
I also found myself intrigued by the difference between how you were doing the turn and cut and kind of feels like it's automatic in my body, which is I have a tendency to, rather than raise, turn, and cut, when I'm just working by myself, I'm turning as I raise. And just how different a rhythm that is.
Yeah.
It was perturbing to my system at first to go here and then turn.
Yeah, because I mean, it depends on what you're imagining. So
Right.
an attacker there, and I see the attacker now. I hear someone behind me, and I'm gonna do that. So the sort of scenario I was playing with is I'm dealing with you. Oh, someone behind me dealing with you, and then oh, someone over there, and so on. So that's the scenario that I kind of, it's like, this is what I'm dealing with, and this is what I'm connected to. And then as I bring this up, oh, now there's someone behind me and turning. So that's where that comes from, rather than doing it as a whole. It's like, where's my imaginary connection that I'm playing with? Which is different than the feeling of this is just moving. This is working with an imaginary somebody.
Yeah,
Me.
I think the story I was in on that is, okay, I took care of you. Now there's somebody behind me I need to take care of, instead of, okay, there's a strike and you're still there and I'm paying attention.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, thank you for that.
Well, and it just depends, because if we're doing number 2 and we're doing this, that person's still there. And then I'm going to come in and do that. So, so there's generally a sense that the person in front of us is still there, that we're connecting to. So I think all of this really has to do with how we're relating with the situation. And therefore where our awareness goes. Yeah, thanks for that, David. So we're going to be doing our mind, body, spirit practice with our intention in the bokken. But I just want to invite us all to consider connection and what that means, and any thoughts you might have. You can send that. This was an interesting thing that she said. Satomi Sensei said that the purpose of ukemi is to prepare the student for receiving knowledge. And if I had an idea it was going to happen, I would fail to receive the lesson he was trying to give me. Cultivating sincere attack means intentionally forgetting what Nage technique is practicing. So anyway, I think that's all quite interesting in terms of when I'm anticipating, it's harder to have a connection than when I'm with the moment. So, and then just one quick thing before we do our thing. I had a Dharma talk with Lama Yeshe. He's a Tibetan Lama that once a month gives a talk. And one of the things that I took away from it was 3 things: simplicity, cheerfulness, and kindness. And the man asked him, one of the questions was, what do you mean by simplicity? And he said, don't get caught in negative thoughts because it makes everything complicated. So I just wanted to share that with you because I thought that was brilliant. It was so sweet and so simple. He goes, negativity is very complicated. So I'll pass that along because that made me smile. That was a good one. So I've been working with, like, I start to get caught up in something. I go, I'm not making it simple. I'm making it complicated here. I'm trying to figure this thing out rather than just being with it. All right, so let's take a minute and do our mind, body, spirit practice. Inviting some ki up from the earth and down from the sky, opening our backs, imagining our teachers, mentors, and Aikido spirit is supporting us, and let's speak out loud what we'd like to bring into the world. I wish to bring more joyful perseverance into the world. Send it out. I wish to bring more joyful perseverance to the world. Send it out. I wish to bring more joyful perseverance to the world. Cut. Cut again. And a kiai. Hey! All right, let's bring it up another 5%, a little more, a little brighter, a little more flow, a little more connection. Musubi, ready, and. I wish to invite more joyful perseverance in the world. Send it out. I wish to cultivate more joyful perseverance in the world. Send it out. I wish to support more joyful perseverance in the world. Cut. Cut again. And a kia. Hi. All right, last one. 3s are so good. A little brighter, a little shinier, a little more flow, more connection. Ready, and. I wish to cultivate more joyful perseverance in the world. And send it out. I wish to cultivate more joyful perseverance in the world. Send it out. I wish to cultivate more joyful perseverance in the world. Cut. Cut again. Big kiai. Hey! Nice, let's put our both hands to the side. Take a moment to do a little heaven and earth breathing. Dipping down and drawing some ki up from the earth, reaching for the heavens and radiating out into the world. Drawing from the earth, reaching for the stars, extending out. Two more. And let's just stand in it for a moment, sensing our connection to heaven and earth, sending some good energy out into the world, recognizing our connection to our community, our friends and training partners, our teachers and mentors, both Sensei's vision, and our own hearts. Spell out. どうもありがとうございました。Thank you very much for class. Elizabeth, you want to disengage us?